some of the things for like Facebook, the shops that already have the pre-set things, do you know anything about that to where they automatically reply to you with like, what were you looking to get, something like that?
No.
All right, cool. Move on. What's up, everybody? It's Brandon from Tattooing 101. In today's subject, we're going to be going over technology and the tattoo industry. Some things that could definitely benefit people if they're first getting into tattooing to save some time. Today, I have Maddox with me, which is a student of Tattooing 101, went through the program, and it actually became a tattoo artist, and now he's guest spotting in my shop for a couple weeks just to try to pick up on some more stuff, because eventually you want to open up your own studio, right?
That's correct, yep.
So I know that I am absolutely terrible with pretty much everything involving technology. Even my phone and I get in some struggleless fights at some periods of time. So I have Maddox with me that is way better at technology than I am, for sure. I know the couple things that I know are like Procreate, stuff like that. So we're going to break down a couple of the things that I know personally and then go into some more in-depth things that you know. So before we get into it, give us some background of, how you've gotten into like the technology side of things before becoming a tattoo artist, just to get a little bit more of an insight of your backstory.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a nerd, first and foremost, so that kind of helps a little bit. But I've been into computers since they first came out. I mean, my mom got, a computer when I was a kid for taxes, like one of the first ones to ever come out. And ever since then, I've just been like totally enthralled by them. I just find
Do you remember
it
dial-up?
Fascinating. Oh my God, yeah.
It hit me like a flood, remembering like the
delays, yeah.
waiting hours just to go to Google.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of like extended through my teenage years, and then when I decided to go to college, it just kind of made sense for me to like follow the tech route. So I actually got my degree in computer science. Mm-hmm. I can write in about 10 different coding languages.
That's wild.
I build all my own machines in terms of like my computers and stuff like that. I just was kind of gone from there.
Yeah, and mind you, I did not even know that there was computer languages, let alone more than one.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's something I learned today.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing we'll get into is Procreate. One thing that pretty much every tattoo artist I know that tattoos professionally is doing.
Yeah.
Obviously on an iPad. Now, I have a little backstory on how I got into Procreate. So a couple years ago, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago now, I got an iPad and I was still drawing on paper, at the time, and colored pencils. And I was like, I need to try this out. It was first when they started to get big, you started to see, the big artists having them and doing all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It has to be pretty easy, I could draw on paper, so I could do on this. Well, I had it for about a week. And then I was like, this is terrible. Like, this is the worst invention on the face of the earth. So I sold it and, went through time, and it started to get a lot more, everyone started using them, even every other artist in the shop. And I was like, I have to do this. So
there was like a very noticeable like bump.
Yeah.
No one was using them except for a couple people. And then boom. Yeah. Everyone. Yeah.
And I started seeing more artwork online, and it was like just the craziest stuff ever that they just did on iPad. So I was like, okay, I got this. I'm just going to take the time, learn it. So this time I had it for about a month. And then I was like, screw this. It's been working for me. I got this. So I ended up sending it to my apprentice. Literally like a week. He was doing the coolest stuff on this iPad in 1 week. And then I was like, wow, I'm really going to make a huge mistake in my career if I don't just buckle down and figure this out. Like, my apprentice is making better things than I could on an iPad. So finally got my third one and put in the time. I remember watching Dave Tevenall whenever he would do his lives and just picking up on little stuff from there. But yeah, I finally got it. It finally clicked after a long time, but it's hard to transition from, I won't say like caveman tools, because like, it's what we're used for so long, but it does feel like it now. Like, I could not imagine going back to paper without an iPad now. And yeah, one of the biggest things that helped me, and will probably help someone out there, is getting the screen protector that has the texture to it.
Yeah, it feels like paper.
Yeah, like slight sandpaper feel, so it actually has the feel of actual paper. That helps me out a ton. I still use it to this day. But yeah, what is your thoughts on Procreate? I know that it was around when you got into the industry, but you worked at that shop beforehand too.
Yeah. Well, man, I learned how to draw on a Wacom tablet.
I remember them.
Yeah. And even the jump from the Wacom to the iPad was there was a bit of a learning curve because you know you're looking in a completely opposite direction.
I remember that.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely noticed like when I was, you know, first in the tattoo industry, there is most people used pencil and paper. There's a few odd artists that would use Procreate.
Yeah.
Photoshop.
Okay,
Yeah. Photoshop
Or realistic stuff.
Yeah, for the realistic stuff, exactly. But you didn't really see anybody who did like traditional or neo-traditional using any of that stuff. It really was just for realism.
Yeah.
And then it was just like an explosion. All of a sudden, everybody used Procreate. For me, like I've always been drawn to like the more gadget side of things. So Procreate kind of came like it just made sense for me to jump on there. I was already pretty well versed in Photoshop and Illustrator as well. I had to be for doing web development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just I got lucky because in my schooling we got taught how to use those programs. But Procreate's a different beast. It definitely like took some Googling and some YouTubing to figure it out.
I will say it's definitely easier than Photoshop.
Oh, for sure.
Like I went to college for graphic design at one period of time, and not very long, mind you. But learning Photoshop, there's so much, and I remember all the updates that they would do would change so much. So you have to like take courses on that every time they have an update because there's just so much to learn. But Procreate, there are updates, but it's pretty, so far, please don't change anything. But it's pretty easy to just pick up and use.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Having a tech mind and everything, what do you think is the biggest like setback from like the old school tattoo artists that only do pencil and paper? What do you think is stopping them from wanting to kind of branch out and use an iPad? Because I have my own views on it, but I've been in the industry for a while now, so I want to know kind of like a newer artist how they feel about it.
Well, I think it's kind of it's a couple of things. I think one of those things is like what you said. I mean, it's gotta not feel super great to be doing something your whole life, and then like for you, right? You give the apprentice your iPad, and in a week he's making like the coolest stuff ever, right? Yep. Like that's gotta not feel great. From like the other side of that, So I think that it's a little bit of an ego thing for sure. Also, people just naturally like tend to be afraid of change.
For sure,
that's just like our human nature.
Yeah.
And when things started changing, there's always going to be a little bit of resistance.
Setback.
Yeah. So I think it's that. But I just don't think that people realize that it's such a huge time saver. I mean,
it is.
Drawing on pencil or drawing on paper with pencils or markers, it's like it's closer to tattooing in the sense that if you make a mistake, you can't really go back. Whereas in Procreate, you have the
double finger.
Yeah, exactly. But also at the same time, like you don't have to do it again. You can just undo it, or if you need to move a leaf, if you're drawing a flower, you don't have to sit there and redo the whole thing. You can just move the flower or move the leaf. So I think it's a huge time saver when you're designing a bunch of tattoos in a day. And you have to meet a time frame, I mean...
Yeah, drawing on pencil and paper, there's going to be some times where you probably can do it better, but do you really want to redo the whole thing?
Right, exactly.
So with the iPad, it's definitely way more efficient in being able to help your designs grow. And I think the biggest setback whenever it comes to, the old school kind of mindset tattoo artist not wanting to go to Procreate is just like, the resentment. Just like you said, people don't like change and everything. Just like there are rotary machines out there. When they first came out, mind you, traditional machine was still way better for all those reasons. Now there are rotary machines that I use all the time, and I will never go back to a traditional machine ever in my career. Like, they're just so game-changing, and not having to tune them and check them every tattoo. So I know throughout like my career of seeing the industry change and getting more digital, I wanted to see if you had any setbacks or anything, only doing everything on digital nowadays, like getting into shops, or any issues you've had with that, only doing digital artwork.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of smack talk to me for being a digital artist, for sure. You know, a lot of people will say that, you know, it's not respectable, and that, you know, it's going to affect your tattooing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so all the things that they're saying, do you feel like that's the case?
I mean, you've seen my work.
Yeah.
I don't think so. You know, granted, I am fairly new to the tattoo industry, so I can only speak from the little experience that I do have. But I mean, I feel like I've been able to learn and pick up tattooing just as fast as anybody who can draw with a pencil and paper can.
For sure.
I actually think that my work is a little bit more efficient, you know, just because I'm not sitting there redrawing things over and over and over again.
Carrying around a light desk.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's easier to carry around an iPad, way less supplies for sure. I mean, I have a whole caboodle full of art supplies, and when I have to do my pencil and paper days at the shop, like, you know, it's definitely a bigger pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Pulling my backpack and my iPad out.
For sure.
You know, I can say that, you know, if you're drawing with pencil and paper, the one benefit that you get out of it is the repetition. Yeah. But I mean, you could also do that on a tablet too. I mean, nothing's stopping you. So overall, I mean, I don't really understand why like people have such a hardcore stigma against digital art. Personally, I think a lot of the times it looks cooler, but maybe I'm biased too. You know, but that's just my opinion.
Another thing I think it is like, this is going to come up, you know, a couple times, is just getting set in a certain kind of way. And like, it does feel a lot better after spending, you know, 20 hours on a piece of paper, painting it and all the things, to have a finished flash that you could put on the wall. There's just something that kind of, you become a part of it. With digital, I don't really have that, because you could just make prints, and like, it's not a one-time type of deal. Sure. You know, so there is kind of that to it, but I also do believe that digital is an efficient way to learn how to tattooing. And the biggest setback I see is people saying it's so expensive to get an iPad, but I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on just colored pencils and tablets and paint, to where like, you could do all of those things on an iPad now and not have any reoccurring costs, unless for some reason you punch your iPad.
Yeah, I mean, that you just kind of nailed it right there. For me, like I said, you know, I have a whole caboodle that I carry around, all my paints and all my papers and different pencils and pens and all this stuff, when I have my iPad that has all of that stuff in one piece of software. I mean, it's just, it makes my life so much easier. I'm also like prone to losing things really easily, sure. So I misplace my pens and my pencils all the time, and I don't have to worry about that with Procreate. Like, I can just, as long as I have my Apple Pencil, like, I'm good to go.
And the amount of times that I've forgotten a pencil sharpener.
Right. It's just the little things that, I mean, they don't call it starving artists, but
no kidding.
You're right. I mean, the paper alone is crazy expensive. You wouldn't think it, but definitely it adds up quick.
And for an iPad, you don't ever have to worry about it. The only thing you have to remember is a charger, which I've definitely forgotten times as well.
I have also. It happens.
So being in the manager position when you were first getting into your first tattoo studio, and also being really good on the tech side of things, what are some things that you use in order to save time in the tattoo industry?
Well, we've already covered Procreate. So that's a big one for sure. I would say that's probably the number one. But on the other side of things, it's, you know, your calendar, your own calendar. So Calendly is great for that. I mean, it sets everything up to your Google Calendar. I mean, that's a huge time saver, because then you don't have to set up the appointments yourself. Calendly does it for you, and the client will pick the time that you have available that fits their schedule. I mean, not having that back and forth is a huge time saver. I mean, it's massive.
So someone in my standpoint of always carrying around my little calendar book, what are some pluses? Like, what if I have an off day, or, you know, I have a sick day and I need to reach out to my customer? It's where I just have my like number and stuff written down. Does it all have something on the software to be able to help out with stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the ability to send out like mass emails, so you don't have to sit there and write out an email for every single client you have that day. You can send them one email, and it will go out to all of the clients you have that day, saying, you know, I've got other stuff going on today. I'm sick, whatever the case may be. You know, I'm taking a me day, whatever.
Okay, cool.
You know, it makes that a lot easier for sure.
And also, like, if you're wanting to set it up for like only your open hours, does that have the possibility to have it set?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, you can't lose a calendar. You lose a calendar bucket for sure.
So one thing that I use in my shop is digital consent forms. So I have an application that literally you have to take a picture. I'm sure you saw it in our shop.
Yep.
Makes things a whole lot easier, saves a ton of time, because first off, you don't have to keep 7 years of paperwork on hand at all times, because it's all just put into my Google Drive. So the health department loves it. They just come in and check a couple of things.
Right.
Along with that, have you done paperwork consent forms, and how do you feel about it?
Let me tell you something. I have done some paperwork at time. All right. When I was managing the shop, we did not have digital consent forms yet. It was all still pieces of paper that were photocopied. You know, you had to photocopy the ID to the thing. You know, and then at the end of every month, I would have to go through every single consent form, scan it into the computer, file it away, and you know, it was just like so monotonous, so time consuming. I mean, I would have to set aside like a whole week to just do consent form management.
Yeah, and it's a mess.
Yeah, with the digital consent forms, I mean, it's just like instantaneous. You don't have to worry about it all. If you have it set up correctly, it all files itself away. It's just so much easier.
And you get so much more information. Like,
totally.
And the ones that I use, you know, if they ask if they're on any medications, you know, anything that you would like to add to the artist, if you're allergic to anything, you know, because latex, things like that, you get all the information. It even asks, when's the last time you ate? Because people that don't eat for 24 hours and get a tattoo, then they wonder why they pass out. You know, things like that. So it's all set up like in a perfect way. To have all the information that you need. There's even a place to put the price of your tattoos to save that you could just export, and then you have all your tax information right there. You know, that's none of the stuff that you could get on an actual paper. And whenever the printer ink would run out in a tattoo studio back in the day and you weren't able to scan the IDs, you weren't tattooing that day until you figured that out. You know, so it's a game changer. Just make sure you keep your stuff plugged in and you're ready to rock and roll. So I have built a few websites for some of my tattoo studios in the past, and I remember it being such a daunting process. I believe I used like a website, so it was like super easy, but it still took forever. Doing that for a living, what do you think the best route is, or some of your views on the actual making a website, and if you think it's valuable?
Sure. I think it's safe to assume that like most tattoo artists don't want to build a website. It's just something that takes time, and you know, like you said, can be daunting if you don't really know what you're doing.
And as a whole, tattoo artists aren't very tech savvy. Like, I'm not speaking for everyone, but as a whole, most aren't.
I find that you know, websites like Wix or even Weebly, although I do prefer Wix over Weebly, make it a lot easier. I mean, it's really just drag and drop.
I believe that's the one I used.
Yeah, if you can just drag and drop the information in there, it's no problem. Especially nowadays with ChatGPT, you don't even have to write your own stuff. You can just kind of plug in the key points that you want to make, copy and paste it into your website, and boom, you're ready to go. Anything to, you know, cut out all the extra stuff to really give you more time to focus on what it is that you actually want to focus on, right?
Yeah, website could be, it takes forever. I remember when I was doing the website for my last tattoo studio, it just takes so long, and there's so much more productive things that you could be working on besides building websites. Do you believe that it's something important for a tattoo studio to have? Like, what are the advantages of having a website over not?
Well, first of all, it allows people to find you. You know, through Google searches. Most people that I've talked to when finding a tattoo shop, the first thing they do is go to Google, then look for the tattoo shops in their area, if you don't have a website, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to compete with those who do.
Okay.
I think that having something other than an Instagram is important, because
What about Facebook?
even Facebook, I mean, Facebook is good, Instagram is good, but those platforms at some point will probably become obsolete.
Just like MySpace.
MySpace became obsolete. Facebook is, used to be super popular. Everybody was on it. Now it's like Instagram. You never know when things are going to change.
True.
But websites are forever.
Yeah,
as long as you pay your fees for your website, it's going to be there, and it's going to be searchable on Google.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's a really important subject to think about, because I remember MySpace was awesome.
Yeah.
I never thought it would disappear. That
Right.
did. And I was like, what is this Facebook?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like my life changed overnight. And, I wasn't tattooing back then, obviously, but if I was and I spent all my time committed to that one platform, it would have been a major setback.
Yeah.
So, website would be a big deal. And how do you feel about, we talked about the whole email things, having, the Calendly set up with the emails and being able to email your customers. Do you feel like that would be beneficial in the tattoo industry?
Absolutely, yes, because emails have a search function. So if there's ever a time where you need to search for something in particular that was like related to that client, you can search all that stuff up, as opposed to like if you're just taking appointments on your phone or on your DMs.
Searching for hours all the way.
Yeah, on Instagram. I mean, you're not going to be able to do that. You're literally going to have to sit there by hand and go through everything yourself, and no one got time for that.
Yeah. I mean, I have done that, so I've had the time because I needed to. But, it's annoying. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not fun.
You spend 3 hours and can't find it anyway, so you give up.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it kind of just, having a website and using your email and using Calendly and things like this really just, at the end of the day, allows you to do what it is that you want to do and spend less time doing the stuff that you don't want to do.
For sure.
It's going to make your life way easier in the long run. For sure.
So out of all the technology in tattooing, how it's changed, even your tattoo machine, the pen style tattoo machine is hooked up to your app now.
Yeah.
What machine is that?
Yeah, it's the FK Iron Flux.
Yeah, that's right. So with all of the technology, what do you think is the biggest game changer for a new artist wanting to get into the tattoo industry? Like, what's the main thing that would be set in stone that they need to do? Hard question. I put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I got to think about that one.
No problem.
I think the biggest game changer for a tattoo artist who's either just starting out or deciding to make the leap into trusting technology a little bit more would be to keep in mind that, technology at the end of the day is just there to help you out, right?
Yeah.
And
It's a tool.
it's a tool, right? If you set yourself up at the beginning to accommodate these tools and allow them to do their job and allow them to help you out in the way that they're supposed to and that they can, you're going to be just better for it. You're going to be better in your craft because you're going to have more time to spend on your craft. You're going to have better customer service because you're not going to forget who you're talking to. You're always going to have that line of communication that is open, and you can go back and look at everything that you've already spoke to. The amount of times that people would come into the tattoo shop back in the day when I was managing, when we didn't have any of this stuff, the artist would have the same conversation with the client over and over again, and as tattoo artists, we deal with so many people on a daily basis, and we have so many conversations with people on a daily basis.
It becomes repetitive, like a robot.
Yeah, but it also becomes really easy to forget like the minute details that you have. So it's like, did this person want this font in cursive or did they want non-cursive? Well, all I have to do now is just go back to our conversation and read it over through the email. You just search them up, boom, you have the information right then and there. It's going to give you better customer service overall. It's going to make the customers' experience much better.
For sure. I know that the biggest one I think is a game changer for me is the Calendly. The amount of times that I've double booked in my life is wild. So I feel like that's something that definitely would be beneficial, not only for new artists, but people that have been doing this their whole lives. Because no tattoo artist on the face here can say that they've never double booked anyone. That's for sure. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to know from you guys, out of this whole list that we've told you, what is the one thing that you are going to implement in your tattooing journey? Leave a comment down below so I can check them out. And as always, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
And you guys have a wonderful day.